Hey, how are you doing, everybody? My name is Ben Vischer, and I want to welcome you to the first in a long series of the Local Search at Scale Trials and Triumphs. In this video series, what we're going to do is we're going to interview the hardworking heroes in enterprise and franchise. These are the guys who are inside of the businesses, getting the local marketing done day in and day out. Not, of course, including the fact that they have to herd a lot of cats. So, why should you listen to me? Well, myself, I run an 11-year-old local marketing agency, Steady Demand, and also I'm a Google Business Profile Diamond product expert. Also, the author of Local Search at Scale, which is a BrightLocal series that is all about working with franchises, enterprises, the trials and the tribulations, the good and the bad. And so, today's guest, well, I want to introduce you to Jill. Jill is a seasoned marketing director in the franchisor home service brand space. She leads strategic initiatives over at SystemForward America, where she's driving growth and brand success for franchises like Pop-A-Lock and TemperaturePro. And if you've ever been locked out of your car or your home, you know who Pop-A-Lock is. They've got the orange and white logo. And she also acts kind of as a bridge to corporate too. Me personally, I've been working with Jill for many years now, and I'm always amazed at the fact that she can do what a 10-person marketing team does just by herself. And I think a lot of people don't understand that in the franchise and the enterprise space, as you grow, your team actually shrinks. I've got some lawyer brands that work with us, and they don't even have, I'm sorry, they have, I should say, 5, 6, 7 marketing people on their team. And Jill, she's a lone soldier. She's got some support, but she's going to be here to tell you all about her story, the ups and the downs that she goes through, and what the reality is when you're in franchise marketing. So, Jill, hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for coming on to the premiere episode, basically
Glad to
episode
be here.
01. And please tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
So I got my start in franchising. It was my first job ever in college. Started out as a fitness technician at a local Curves uh, facility, and that became really close friends with the owner of that location. She really became a mentor for me and trained me exceptionally well. Whenever I transferred colleges and I transferred to another school, transferred to another Curves as well. And corporate office ended up taking notice of me and offered me a position at the corporate office as a Curves mentor. And from then on, started traveling around the country. At age of 20, was traveling all over North America, traveling to grand opening locations, teaching owners how exactly to operate their business, everything from operations to marketing, and did that for quite a while. And eventually it progressed into me going into failing locations and working on diagnosing what those issues are and staying on as business consultant. And so that's how I initially got hooked up with franchising. Really fell in love with the efficiency and the scalability of the franchise model, um, and love working and helping business owners grow.
Yeah, helping business owners grow. That's an interesting part, definitely. But it's a very interesting kind of evolution that you had there, right? It's, kind of like we always say that nobody wants to get into, nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, I've got to go become a franchise marketer, right? That's going to be my career. And it sounds like, really you just kind of fell into it. And then once you really saw it for kind of what it was at that time, you just really fell in love with it. You're just like, I want to do this. I absolutely want to do this. I don't want to lose my hair. I'm not going to go gray, but I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to do this. So, to the layperson or the lay marketer, I should say, can you explain to us what do you do?
Well, the number one thing that the marketing team does is really it's consulting with the franchisees on local marketing, exactly what they need to help grow their business locally. So we've we've built the recipe here at corporate. We know it works. We know the different strategies that work for specifically for HVAC and for locksmithing. But what we do here on a daily basis is how do we apply that to each and everyone's local market, and what's the best strategies to use hyper local. So we take what we build. I handle all the corporate, all the branded stuff, but how do we get that in the hands of franchisees and help them actually implement what we're giving them in a
Yeah, and
nutshell?
that's always a challenge, right? Because the franchisees, in your world, it's a kind of it's almost an oxymoron, right? It's an amazing thing. They come, they pay their dues, they become part of the network, right? And they're becoming part of a franchise because they're good business people, and you've already built the mousetrap, so you already built the success. But it doesn't always work out that way. They don't always listen to you,
Mhm.
and sometimes there's even a little bit of animosity there, isn't there?
Sometimes, because actually, like our model is we work with a lot of first time business owners. So most of our franchisees are coming from corporate world where they are phenomenally successful in their own right and have made valuable assets to their team and um, their corporate structure, but they've never actually run or owned their own business before. So we have a lot of first time entrepreneurs. And the transition from corporate America to owning your own local small business is quite different. And so we work really hard on that transition and that lifestyle transition and understanding the business owners that they're the ones that are going to be responsible for doing the day-to-day tasks who they usually have a team of people to help them with. And
Hmm.
so a lot of times what we do is work with them to allow them to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, to see what they will be covering day to day or what they need to be outsourcing or hiring for. So that's a lot of our focus is just understanding, each franchisee is different and understanding what each of their strengths are. So we know how to give them the deliverables and what they're going to implement themselves or what they're going to need help with implementing.
And you have to set up very specific processes to get your franchisees to do what you need them to do to succeed, right? It's like, I mean, I've seen your LSA intake form, which is very impressive, I think, personally. And, but it's done in such a way that it's really difficult, even for your blue collar, I don't know technology franchisee, of which there are quite a few of those.
Yes. So I love spreadsheets. My entire life is on a spreadsheet. So spreadsheets are my best friend, but also we use a lot of technology and software to create the efficiencies and processes and to document everything. And so what we do here at the corporate office is what we try and figure out what is the best technology solution, what is the best method for automating something or using, yeah, something as simple as Google Docs, right? Or Google
Sure.
Sheets, something as simple as file sharing. Because a lot of our franchisees come in and they don't even have file sharing knowledge or capability, or they've never used it. So, what we do is figure out all of that and then just teach them how to access it and how to use it. And um, we really build efficiencies and scales that way to my thought process is okay, how do we do as much as we possibly can so the franchisee has less action items at
Hmm.
the end of the day.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And so we try and do every step here. We build it 90, 95, 98% of the way to where they just have to plug in their local customization on where, from anything from a spreadsheet I build to their business cards of how do they get their content and graphics.
Right on. So let's talk a little bit about your job itself, right? So now we've talked a little bit about kind of what you do and a little bit about the franchisee experience. Um, so it's going to be a really interesting question. No, it's not. Actually, it's going to be mundane. What do you love about your job?
Um, I really, the thing I love the most is creating something from scratch. Having something that just doesn't exist and all of a sudden it exists, it's successful. We're creating jobs, we are creating a presence in local markets, and honestly, the founders that built this company continue using their legacy of passing on, you know the reason why Pop-A-Lock was invented in the first place, to one of the number one things, that they wanted to instill. The reason why Pop-A-Lock was created was they were former sheriff's deputies, and they were wanted a solution to, kids getting locked in hot cars. They never wanted to see another kid get locked in a hot car. So that's one of the things that, this company was built on, and to just increase that message and build a business based on, on the goodwill of them wanting to change their community. um, that's all. Being a part of that is quite nice and impressive, a cause like that. But also taking it to the next level, to where, developing entrepreneurs to where they can be self-sufficient and support their families, and do something for themselves, and not be stuck in the corporate grind of things too. So,
Right on.
that's my favorite part of the job, is just building and creating something from nothing.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I mean, I know I met a lot of franchisees in my time, and they're really great at in some aspects of running a business, and so having that whole engine underneath of them to really catapult them to success, from going from one location to 6 locations to 20 locations, whatever the case may be, and then selling, because they can also sell their franchise units. So, which is great for them, so I think it's fantastic.
Hmm.
So let's go to the opposite side of this. All right. So now that's what you love about what you do. So what
Yeah.
do you not like about what you do? Because come on, let's all be honest here, right? You gotta love some things and you gotta hate some things.
Yep. The thing I hate the absolute most is the unrealistic expectations. So that's the hardest part, that I face on a daily basis, is, just marketing in general. The unrealistic expectations that Google's supposed to just provide everything for you, and Google's just supposed to automatically work and magically work all the time. You create your profile, then all of a sudden your phone starts ringing. So, just unrealistic expectations with just how marketing works in general, and then the unrealistic expectations of what exactly corporate does for you, and what we're supposed to do for you, and what we do or don't do. So that's one of the things, like in our onboarding and training and coaching, that we're very, very clear, and try and set those expectations so they're not coming into the opportunity to own their own business blind. We tell them the good, the bad, the ugly before they even come in, because you own your own business. Owning your own business isn't always, cupcakes and rainbows, right?
Right. Well,
So,
I also love the fact that, especially with System Forward, it's very interesting because you will actually go through a screening process for your franchisees as well.
correct.
Just like you're
Yeah.
doing with like Plumbing Pro, for instance, you know.
Hmm.
And so I think that's actually pretty important. Is that you're saying, you're looking at it and you're saying, does this person really, can they really perform? Is the investment that we're going to put into this person or this company, is it going to actually work,
Right.
basically? And so that's really good because that can also set them up for good success right there. You know. Um, I didn't ask you this before. How big is your team?
So currently, my team consists of 3 people. So we have, a little over 100 and a little over 150 franchisees with two brands. We're in the process of launching that third brand, Plumbing Pro, and it's me, and then we have a content developer, on a very talented, amazing content developer, and then we have a marketing operations and technology manager. So that's actually one of our newest roles. She's actually been with us for quite a while, but it has transitioned into a technology manager just because our technology stack is becoming ever increasingly just big and quite large. And then the operational software that we use, all the integrations, and with the new AI functions coming out. So we have a person that her sole job is to manage our technology stack, to and so that's one thing that we've kind of taken from the franchisees, is that what we're trying to help them with is all those integrations and technology. So um, that's one thing we can do at the corporate level. So it frees their time up to actually do the local marketing that's needed to build their business.
That's great. Let's talk about cats. Okay. We're going to talk about cats really quick. So, in my experience in the franchise world, right, is pretty much working with your franchisees is pretty much like herding cats. You have something that and you vetted and you've proven. You have a case study, for God's sakes, right? And that this is going to help your business.
Hmm.
What's it like trying to get even 50% of your franchise network to move in a certain type of direction?
Great question. And it varies by brand. Okay. So Pop-A-Lock, our legacy brand, they're over 30 years old. I've been here working with System Forward for about 8 years. So I came in, and there was already 28 years of history before I even got here with this company. 25 years of history before I came in, and so with Pop-A-Lock, it's more challenging because they are everything is set, and it takes a lot longer to change things and get things going. And luckily, we have a wonderful we call it our Power Branders Committee, or Power Branders Committee. And we have a really good core group of franchisees. They're pretty much some of the oldest franchisees that are in the system, and some of the most successful. And we have a committee, and they are instrumental in getting the rest of the cats to follow. So, but because they walk the talk in every single day. And so anytime we have significant things that need to happen or change, one of the things that we'll probably talk about on this podcast is the Google bulk verification.
Sure.
Um, so that's one of the big initiatives that we're doing for Pop-A-Lock. And my power branders have been instrumental in spearheading a grassroots type campaign to get everybody marching in the same direction. Now, does that happen every time? No, of course not. But for the major initiatives, it just takes a lot of education and cooperation with our core franchise leaders. Now, Temperature Pro is a lot easier. Temperature Pro is it's fairly new location. Like I said, I've been a new brand. I've been here from the very beginning of it. So with Temperature Pro, it's pretty. There's not a lot of stuff that we had to really completely overhaul or change because we're starting it off right from the get go. And so the franchisees that we're bringing into Temperature Pro, they embrace change. That's one of the qualities we look for, is
That's good.
we need the franchisees that embrace change, that don't run from it, because especially with marketing, it seems like it changes on a daily basis, what needs to happen, and the different strategies. Um, so with Temperature Pro, the herding of the cats, it's not as difficult with Temperature Pro, because majority of them, there's a slim few of those that don't believe the case studies or or won't follow the case studies. For the most part, they're all like, yeah, Jill, just give it to me. Just tell me what works
Those are the
and help me do it.
strays, right? They're just out there like, nope, I know what I'm doing. I don't need you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I think every franchise system has those. Um, so tip and like, because even with curves, whenever I started with curves, there was 700 locations. By the time I left, we had over 11,000 locations.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it was whenever I was with Curves, it was the second best franchise in the world, only behind Subway. And so I remember in the early days of Curves, just from going to the annual meetings and conventions, um, you are always going to have the outliers that march to their own beat, march to their own drum, and you could usually point them out at the trainings and the meetings because they had an approved attire on. they they had off the market attire and things like that. So you can always point out the franchisees that that like to color outside of the lines.
Right on, right on. And let's kind of take a different look at all of this, right? Because we've talked about franchisees a lot, and we've talked about the franchise system and how understaffed you really are. Um, but what is the challenge of working with corporate, or is there a challenge of working with corporate? Usually when you're dealing with an enterprise or a franchise type of system, you got a really, really tiny rudder, right? It's like you need to do this big thing, but it's going to take you just forever to turn that ship. So, and sometimes corporate can be an asset and really be behind you and give you the resources that you need and clear the red tape, right? But sometimes they're there just to put up these barriers and these walls, which makes you basically want to beat your head against the wall until it's a bloody stump.
Right.
And I've seen this now. So talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, what is your experience with corporate bin, and more importantly, when you're looking at those challenges, how do you overcome those challenges?
Great question. Luckily, with System Forward, um, honestly, corporate, I really don't have much issues with corporate because luckily our CEO, he's not a micromanager. He believes in the team, and he really embraces all of us to, he hires people that he believes in, and lets us do our thing. So whenever we're doing initiatives, it's more or less just prioritizing of what's most important, prioritizing, okay, because we always have 100 things to do, and so we'll always prioritize what's first thing, what's last thing. And luckily he is a franchisee himself, so him being a franchisee, he always puts the franchisee facing initiatives to the top of the priority list. So working like with corporate, it like if we have something that we want to develop or get done, we really don't have a lot of red tape at all.
That's
So
awesome.
which is great, which is a testament to why I think I've been here for almost 8 years, because he is a visionary and all he cares about is and the whole corporate team is just growing and building, and okay, how can we do the next best thing. The trouble that not necessarily trouble, but a lot of the red tape that I come across is the budgetary, like
Hmm.
between ad fund and corporate. And so, because with ad fund, that's the franchisee's money, and so we have more red tape surrounding that because, and it's self inflicted red tape because we want to make sure that because it's not System Forward's money, it is the franchisee's money. It's their ad fund, so we want to make sure that we're investing those dollars exactly the ways we should. So, so again, this is where we bring committees in with franchisees and making sure that they have a voice in which initiatives um, need to be put first, and how they're prioritized. So there's more red tape on the ad fund side, but again, self-inflicted. We want the franchisees to be involved in it, and it just, having committees, it just takes a little longer to get stuff done with committees. So
Oh, right on. And we could probably branch out here to talk about something that I think is fun for any business, which is either big or perceived to be big, right? Because everybody perceives a franchise network to be like, oh my god, they've got like 1,000 or 1,500 units. Nope, sorry, we got 150. 150 is a lot too, by the way.
mm,
But so you're constantly being, assaulted by new vendors, people who want to become your vendor for whatever reason, probably because it's easy to sell into a franchise network, right? And so you've got varying quality that you have to deal with. You've got the people who promise the world, and then you've got those who can actually deliver, right?
mhm.
But you have to add this whole extra level of responsibility to your job. You're dealing with all the herding of the cats, right? You're dealing with the corporate. Now, fortunately, on your side, that's a little bit easier, And then you've got all these external forces coming at you, trying to become a preferred vendor. And they might even come from another preferred vendor or a franchisee who says, "Well, I like Billy Bob because Billy Bob does a really great job at my website."
I have this great BNI member. He's fantastic. You should really meet this BNI friend of mine. It's usually how the conversation starts.
Yes, Jill, you should. I'm telling you, you should absolutely do this. And then if you don't do it, oh my God, I'm sorry, you're going to be in trouble with that franchisee. You know that, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
And so
so how
so
do you
yeah.
deal with all of this? How do you deal with
So
the politics of
vendor.
all this?
Um, so I have 2 months of the year that I will take a meeting with a non. So the operational software we use, um, they have their own certified partners. And so I will only meet with non-certified partners a couple of months of the year.
Okay.
They have a very narrow window, and they also have to meet other requirements. Like for instance, scalability is incredibly important to us. So
Sure.
if they can't service 150 franchise locations today, then I'm not even getting on the phone with them. Um, so that's important because we need established businesses, not ones that are wanting to scale and grow with us. We want to make sure that they can handle the capacity because anytime we add a new preferred vendor in, it's for a reason. It's because it's fulfilling a need, and they're all going to want to take advantage of it to
Sure.
for that need. Um, you kind of see that, like, with all of our locations.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, but you and your team can handle it. So yeah, but so that's one thing, is they have to have certain requirements. I'm a lot pickier now than we were 8 years ago
Sure.
about who we're working with. Like again, our technology stack is critically important. So if you are not already adapted or can work within our technology stack, it's not even an option to use you. So we find vendors that operate the same way we do. Um, but more importantly, we look for the best and the brightest. So being that I am a small team of only 3 people, I try and find who's the utmost expert in the world and figure out, how do I become their best friend? How do I work with, you know, how do I work with that diamond Google business product expert?
Right.
And so that's pretty much how we find vendors. Is I usually find them before, because if they're trying to find me, it that's usually not a good thing if they're trying to find me.
Right, right. And sometimes, and sometimes in my experience, right, I don't think we met this way, but in my experience, I like to say that, if you accidentally run into what I call the alpha franchisee, or the one of the franchisee that everybody listens to and corporate listens to, right? Because they have a
Correct.
lot of units usually. That person, if you can solve their problem,
Hmm.
that can show corporate, at least get you into that 2 month interview period, right? Where it's
Correct.
like, okay, so you helped X and you provided Y types of value, which, by the way, we haven't been able to do ourselves, and neither has our current vendor. So, yeah, that's a good opening, basically, at that point.
Yep. Correct. Yeah, and I have one policy with all the vendors that we work with. The first thing, it has to be good for the franchisee. The second thing, it has to benefit and be good for System Forward, and then the third, it has to benefit the vendor as well. And so, if it doesn't check all three boxes, then it's not going to be a good partnership for any of us. So,
Yeah.
it needs to be a win-win-win in each scenario. So hopefully we treat our vendors that way.
Well, I mean, I can definitely say that with us and how we work together, yes, absolutely. You are supremely supportive of your vendors. So when you have found a good vendor, you absolutely go overboard in a good way to get them to utilize the service of the vendors. And it's not just to utilize the service of the vendors for the hell of it, it's because it's going to actually help their business. So,
Correct. Yeah.
even if they don't know what's good for them, at least you do.
Correct. You're absolutely right. And so, um, so yeah, we have we because now we work with over 50 different vendors. In with just for our 150 franchisees, we have over 50 vendors that we work with
Wow.
just for marketing purposes. So we have a core of there's about four vendors that are our core that we work with almost on a weekly, daily basis. So there's usually not a week or a few days that you don't hear from probably me or someone. But so we have our core vendor set up, and again, there's always franchisees that aren't gonna like a certain vendor that you work with, or
Sure.
they insist on doing local. So we try and have the relationship with all of our vendors to not to force our franchisees to use them, but to want to use them. So a lot of our vendors don't require 12-month contracts with our franchisees, and they have very little turnover, and they have very little. Their retention is usually very, very, very high because we put it in the hands of the franchisees. We leave it to be their decisions, and we win them over with results. Is what we do.
And so, let's shift gears really quickly, right? Because we are here to talk about local search, right? It's near and dear to all of our hearts. And when it's franchisees, it's live or die, right? Um, but the franchisees, they are in their business. They're working in their business. Some of them are out in the field, for God's sakes, still
Hmm.
doing the actual work itself, right? It's like I know I'll call up a Pop-A-Lock franchisee and they'll be like, hold on, let me go pull over. I'm on my way to a job, right?
Correct.
So, given that, I mean, we know what the challenge is there. Where the challenge is getting the person on the ground to take an action that is going to benefit them, right? But they're
Correct.
in it, they're in their business, they're kind of thinking like, oh, well, Jill said I got to go ahead and do this to my Google business profile. Yeah, I'll get to that next week,
Right.
next month, next
Yeah, they don't.
year.
They don't. By the way.
So, so how do you get them to act when it comes to local search? It's a broad question on purpose.
Yeah. So with regards to local search, one, education. So it really it starts with education. So we try and communicate with our franchisees a lot. We pry and again, we can't. Everything is not an emergency. Everything isn't the most important thing because then nothing is. So we really do have to prioritize what is the top three things that the franchisees should be focused on, and should, if they're only going to do three, what is the top three things that need to happen? And it could vary by location to location. And so that's another point. It can vary from location to location, because we have some locations that, um, they're brand new. They're in entry to market phase. And then we have some locations that have been operating for over 10 years. So we narrow it down to the top three things and prioritize. And so local search usually tends to be in those top three. And so we have, monthly webinars, quarterly webinars, annual conventions. Um, we also communicate. We have our own internet system, to where we're constantly pushing out reminders to say, okay, do these top three things. This is the most important. And really putting it into the franchisee's hands to say, hey, are you doing these things for local search? Like, are you updating your business hours for holidays, which is an important one, and becoming incredibly more important because of voice search? Just making sure, that the profile is updated. We have some locations that hadn't updated their profile in over 20 years, or 15 years since it was created. And so really, it's just little things like that. Then, so the way that the methods that I use is I gauge to see, after education, after, um, getting the franchisees to see if they're going to be able to DIY it. If we see that it's still not getting done, or they don't have the skill set, or they don't have the resources because they are busy unlocking the doors, and installing or creating new key duplications, or installing new access entry, or whatever the case may be. If we see that they're under time constraints, this is where we utilize our vendors, and we figure out, okay, what vendor could possibly come in to implement, to find a way to implement, and how do they do it at a price that they can actually afford.
Hmm.
Because again, it's small business owners. And so that's another thing with franchising. All of our small business owners, they don't have a huge corporate budget to be able to do local marketing. They are limited in a lot of, situations, especially our new locations, our entry to market locations, our greenfield locations that are starting out brand new. Those guys are very limited budgets a lot of times. And so what we've done is we've basically have a lot of different packaging with a lot of different vendors, to say, okay, you're not going to send out those emails. Well, corporate, we've built it out 90% of the way. All the content's there. Okay, you just have to implement it, to actually go in and schedule your email. It's already there in their software. It's in their CRM. They just have to put their local promo in, and send it out. So if they don't do that, then we have vendors that'll come in and do it for them. And so some of that starts as low as $100 a month, to come in and just do the things, execute, implement the local marketing. So
Do all of the
we to,
things.
do- to do all of the things. And so again, educate, provide the training and resources they need to be able to implement. And then if they are still not capable or able of implementation, outsource.
So here's a great question, though, I think, to follow up on that, right? I mean, because that's great. You're giving the cats, resources. You're giving them advice. You're giving them a top three list so they can actually focus, right? And so, but what do you do when you have and I think you can lump these two together, inexperienced and underfunded franchisee? The one where you tell them, hey, look, I got this $100 a month service. It's going to save you X amount of hours. It might even bring you, $1,000 in revenue, whatever the case may be. But they're still like, no, it's $100. I can't do that, Jill. How do you deal
Yeah.
with that?
Then at the end of the day, the business owner has to be self accountable.
Hmm.
And so if they're not meeting certain business goals, we have to look and say, okay, what is everything that corporate has provided, or are they utilizing it? Can they utilize it? I always, I got the best advice the other day is anytime I get any complaints, dare to be curious. Have the courage to be curious. Is some of the best advice I've ever gotten. Is so if we have franchisee complaints coming in because they're not able to do it or we're not doing it for them, um, I dare to be curious each and every time and just ask questions. Okay, like what are some trouble that you're having doing it yourself? Is there a way we can automate it to where we can just take it away and do it for you? um, so so with that philosophy that we've incorporated with our franchisees, it's helped a lot, by understanding what's actually going on, what's actually happening on the ground. Because yeah, it's $100, but some of these locations they may not have $100 extra to spend because they're doing so many other right things. So that's when we get on the phone and we look at their overall budget. We look and see, okay, what is their growth plans? Um, so it's a much deeper question. If someone can't afford $100 on something, then we have to prioritize
Well, there's a
and
business problem at that point.
and it's a business problem at that point. So we analyze and see, okay, what are the top three things that can help them? Because you want to do all the right things with marketing, but in reality, it's just not going to happen with when that's with every business. So you have to do what's going to give you the biggest bang for the buck, um, at the right time. Okay, and so that's kind of what we help and guide with. You can't do all the things, but you can do the things that move the needle first.
Right on. I love that. Dare to be curious. That's a good tagline.
Yeah,
It is.
some of the best advice I've received.
Yep. And what I would like to do is to wrap this up is I want you to share with us two experiences. I want you to share with us one of the things that you would say is one of the best experiences that you have had in the franchise world. And also I want to hear about the worst and how you dealt with that.
Hmm.
Let's give us a real story.
One of the best experiences. Let's see. Um, so I guess having our annual meeting at Disney World every year that doesn't count. So
Are you kidding me? I
that's
love
high up
that.
there for me. um, I think one of the greatest is hearing the word thank you. Actually, with franchising, a lot of times. We don't hear thank you ever from the franchisees. And the other day, and this is why we do it. But we had a franchisee that thanked us immensely, for some of the email stuff that we've been putting out, and the integrations that we've been doing, and like genuinely heartfelt thanked us that we this is actually making a difference in my business. And so just that's probably the best experience. It's not, yeah, I know it's very broad, but that's why we do what we do, because the locations who do embrace what we do, that it is helping them and it's helping them meet their goals. And so just getting that thank you in itself, and so it's just as simple as a thank you. Just to know that the marketing that we're doing is actually work. I can see the numbers to see that it's working.
Sure,
Like I,
right?
but to get on the phone with a franchisee and say, man, I don't know what y'all been doing, but y'all keep doing it because my phone's ringing more, and so just to have that genuine thank you. So that's the success story in it.
Okay.
And just getting the referrals from the franchisees, like, that in itself is, um, because it's not every day franchisees like their franchisors.
Sure. Of course.
And so that's probably the worst of it too, when the relationship does go south, or does sour.
Right on. And so what about the worst? And
Um,
how you dealt with it, more importantly, I think.
Um, the worst always has to be when we lose a franchisee.
Mm.
So because every franchise system, this is what they don't talk about. Like you lose at least 10% of your locations.
Oh, wow.
Either they just are underperforming, not doing what they need to do to survive. Franchises they close less than normal businesses do, but it's still business just the same, and it's not guaranteed to be successful. Even McDonald's has closures of stores. Um, so every multi-location isn't 100% successful, and so it's always hardest when we lose a franchisee, when we know that we've done everything that we've possibly can do and they're still not succeeding. um, that's just the worst, to get on a phone with the franchisee and see that they're doing all the right things and just something out of their control, is the economy, COVID,
Right.
a national pandemic, just whatever the case may be. That's always the hardest, is losing franchisees, especially when you put so much effort. It's kind of like raising a child.
Yeah.
You put so much effort and energy into to coaching and consulting and rooting for them. So that's always the worst, is when we see a franchisee not succeed. I always take it personally.
Oh, right
I
on.
know I shouldn't, but I take it so personally when one of my children don't succeed.
Yes, no, unfortunately, I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean. But you also have to celebrate the success too, right? You know,
Absolutely. So
when you have those franchisees that, like I said, it's like, it's like I know quite a few that will be in the network and they'll grow to maybe 10 units and then they'll sell to somebody else who wants to have those 10 units,
yeah,
you know?
and that's always hard too, because we have a few resales that are happening now, but um, those are less sad because again they stay friends. They're using this as an investment, and they're not selling because they're unhappy with us. They're selling it because it's an investment. And so those are actually success stories in my eyes. Resales, is that they're hitting what they need to hit
Right
to,
on.
and then moving on to the next adventure, because you know eventually one day when maybe I'll be on the other side of it and own my own franchises, but I have a feeling, every 8 years to 10 years, I'm going to want a new experience. So I completely understand that.
Right on. Right on. So we are at the end of our first ever episode. Is there anything parting wisdom that you would like to kind of put out there for the franchises who are watching this, or marketers who are just watching this to kind of learn what it's like to be in your shoes? Any final parting words?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is scalability. That's the biggest difference between working like at an agency, versus like a franchisor. Because so then just working with different marketers over the years, franchising really is unique, that you're not going to make the same marketing decisions or build it the exact same way, if you were just building it for a standalone business or a standalone corporation. Multi-unit marketing, it really needs to be scalable, and so having processes that make it scalable is key. So that's my biggest advice, is evaluate everything that you do on a daily basis and figure out and determine and really analyze it. Is it as scalable as it could possibly be? Or
Awesome.
could we make some adjustments to make it more efficient? So efficiency is key, um,
Excellent.
when it comes to franchising.
Okay, I completely agree. Well, cool. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jill, really for coming on. Where can people find you? Like socials, websites? Where can they follow you and get in contact with you?
So I am on LinkedIn. So I can give you my LinkedIn, but find the or Jill at
Okay.
systemforward.com.
All right.
Um, uh, my last name is no one pronounces it correctly. So, so it's Jill Power.
Jill V. That's what
Jill
we go
B.
with that. Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
Villejoin can be a mouthful.
All right, well, cool. Then, hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you for joining me and Jill as we delved into the triumphs and tribulations, basically the trials and triumphs of local search at scale. And please do consider subscribing to the Bright Local YouTube channel so you can hear when we're going to release our next episode. Because trust me, we've got a couple more lined up and we're going to keep on going this year. And you're going to be meeting some really interesting people. And again, thank you, Jill, so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the pilot episode of this as well. And with that, everybody, thank you very much. Have a great week, weekend, evening, or morning, wherever you're at.